Many thanks for joining me on the news. On Israel-Gaza conflict, Israeli bombing of Gaza, UNRWA school kills 32. Results mapping in India 2024 election. 4 dead, dozens wounded in Czech train crash. United Nations chief urges tax on fossil fuel company profits, and weight loss drugs booming business in China. On Israel-Gaza war, according to officials and reports, Israeli forces have bombed a United Nations-linked school in central Gaza, killing no less than 32 displaced Palestinians and wounding dozens more. Hamas, which governs the Gaza Strip, condemned the pre-dawn attack on Thursday as a horrible massacre and said many women and children were among those killed and injured. Reports from Palestine put the death toll at 32. The agency said the thousands of displaced Palestinians were sheltering at the Nuseirat Camps Al-Saadi school, which is associated to the United Nations Agency for Palestinian Refugees, UNRWA, when it came under attack. A spokesman for Gaza's government media office, Ismail Al-Thawab, said huge numbers of dead and wounded were arriving at the Al-Aqsa hospital in central Gaza. The dead and wounded were overwhelming the hospital, which is filled with injured patients 3 times beyond its clinical capacity, he added. These portents a real disaster that will lead to an even greater increase in the number of martyrs. Israel's military confirmed the bombing, saying its fighter jet hit a Hamas compound embedded inside an UNRWA school in the area of Nuseirat. It claimed the bombing eliminated terrorists who were planning to carry out attacks against its forces. Hamas rejected the Israeli statement. The attack on Al-Saadi came as Israeli forces ramped up their bombardment of Gaza, even as the United States and mediators continue to press ahead with an effort to secure a ceasefire deal. According to reports from Deir al-Balah in central Gaza, prior to the latest attack on Nuseirat, Israeli forces had killed at least 102 people in 24 hours. These included attacks on the Bureij and Maghazi refugee camps, also located in central Gaza. Earlier on Wednesday, Doctors Without Borders in a statement described the situation in Gaza as apocalyptic. The group, which is known by its French acronym MSF, said that Al-Aqsa Hospital had received 70 dead people and over 300 injured since Tuesday, and that the majority of the casualties were women and children. Karen Hoster, an MSF official, said the odor of blood in the hospital's emergency room this morning was unbearable. People are lying everywhere on the floor. Outside, bodies were being brought in plastic bags. The situation is overwhelming, she added. The insane escalation of violence across the Gaza Strip and the closure of the Rafah border crossing, which has suspended most humanitarian deliveries into the Palestinian enclave, has stretched the health system to the point of collapse, she said. At least 36,586 Palestinians have been killed and 83,074 have been injured in Israel's 8-month war on Gaza. The brutal assaults, with some countries and United Nations experts say amounts to genocide, began after Hamas fighters launched attacks inside Israel on October 7th of last year, killing at least 1,139 people and taking dozens of others captive. On India 2024 election, with all of India's 640 million voters counted following a 6-week-long election, the Bharatiya Janata Party BJP, together with its National Democratic Alliance NDA, has won a majority despite a piercing decrease in their seat tally compared with the 2019 elections. Incumbent Prime Minister Narendra Modi's governing BJP won 240 seats, falling short of the 272 mark that shows a majority in the Lok Sabha, the lower house of India's parliament, which has 543 seats in total. With its allies, the BJP has still secured 293 seats to win. The opposition India Alliance, led by Rahul Gandhi's India National Congress (INC) party, won 232 seats, with the Congress winning 99 of those, increasing sharply from 2019 when the Congress won only 52 seats and with its allies in 91 constituencies. These year's election numbers contrast dramatically with the 2019 results, when the BJP-led NDA won 353 seats, 303 of which were secured by the BJP alone. The map represents the 543 seats in India's lower house of parliament. The winning party stroke alliance are shaded for each constituency. Each hexagon represents on one seat, so densely populated by geographically small constituencies are shown equally, with huge districts to better mirror the democratic power in parliament. Uttar Pradesh, a state governed by the BJP since 2017, has a total of 80 parliamentary constituencies, as is India's most populous state with over 240 million people. As such, it holds the key to determining who governs in New Delhi. Moreover, both Modi and Gandhi contested elections from different constituencies in the state. The NDA won 64 seats from the state in 2019, of which the BJP alone clutched 62. The Congress won only one seat. The Bahujan Samaj Party BSP won 10, and the Samajwadi Party SP got 5. But the 2024 outcome looks very different. The SP won 37 seats and the Congress 6, totaling 43 from the India Alliance. The BJP won 33 seats while its allies secured 3 seats in UP. Most stunningly, the BJP lost in the Faizabad constituency, which is home to the Ram Temple in Ayodhya, which Modi consecrated in January. The temple, built on the ruins of the Babri Mosque, which was demolished by a Hindu mob in 1992, was a centerpiece of the BJP's campaign. The BJP and its allies suffered big losses in the western state of Maharashtra, as the Congress and its partners made key gains. The India Alliance, which includes the Congress as well as splintered groups of Shiv Sena and the Nationalist Congress Party NCP, won 30 of the state's 48 seats. The Congress alone won 30 seats, while the BJP won 9. Now, 4 people have been killed and over 2 dozens wounded after a passenger train crashed into a goods train in the Czech city of Pardubice, about 100 kilometers 60 miles east of the capital, Prague. The head-on collision took place after 11 p.m. local time on Wednesday, as the train with over 300 passengers were heading east towards Ukraine, officials said. Alina Kisiala, a spokeswoman for local emergency services, said, according to report, "I can confirm that 4 people suffered injuries incompatible with life. The train was on its way from Prague to the western Ukrainian town of Chop, close to the border with Slovakia, and many foreigners were among those on board. Of the 24 people wounded, 3 were reported to be in severe condition." Petr Fiala, the Czech Republic's prime minister, offered his condolences for what he described as a great disaster on social media platform X. Dozens of police, fire and emergency service units were sent to the scene of the accident, assisting to evacuate passengers from the carriages. Services between Prague and the smaller cities of Brno and Ostrava were suspended for many hours. An investigation is underway into the cause of the collision. Antonio Guterres, the United Nations Secretary General, speaking from the American Museum of Natural History in New York, called for a tax on profits of fossil fuel companies to help pay for the fight against global warming. Already this year, a brutal heat wave has baked Asia with record temperatures, shriveling crops, closing schools and killing people. Cities from New Delhi to Bamako to Mexico City are scorching. Here in the U.S., savage storms have destroyed communities and lives. We have seen drought disasters declared across southern Africa, and the extreme rates flood the Arabian Peninsula, East Africa and Brazil. Guterres appealed to media and tech companies to stop taking advertising from its biggest players, as has been done in some places with the tobacco industry. During his speech on World Environment Day, he reiterated his fears about subsidies paid out in numerous countries, which help keep prices low for consumers. Climate change is the mother of all stiff taxes paid by everyday people and vulnerable countries and communities, he said. Meanwhile, the godfathers of climate chaos, the fossil fuel industry, rake in record profits and feast off trillions in taxpayer-funded subsidies. The United Nations chief repeated the need to decrease global emissions of carbon dioxide by 9% each year to 2030 for the 1.5 degrees Celsius aim to be kept alive. He called on advanced economies in the G20 group of countries who are holding a summit in Brazil next month to take the lead. We cannot accept a future where the rich are protected in air-conditioned bubbles while the rest of humanity is lashed by lethal weather in unlivable lands, Guterres said. Still ahead on the news, the Danish pharmaceutical giant Novo Nordisk doubled its sales of the diabetes drug in the country to virtually $700 million, 5% of Ozempic's global sales last year. In 2021, Ozempic was approved in China to treat diabetes, but it has been its anti-obesity ingredient, semaglutide, that has stoked demand for what many Chinese refer to as the internet celebrity weight loss drug. Chinese female influencers and vloggers have promoted the use of Ozempic on Chinese social media. The same platforms are also the birthplace of several beauty challenges that have gained traction over the years, where mostly young females display their thinness. Pang Wang, a senior lecturer in Chinese and Asian studies at Australia's University of New South Wales, said, "Overall, thinness is the beauty standard for women in China, and some are even willing to demonstrate it and pursue it to the detriment of their health." For Wang, the rise in demand for Ozempic is no surprise. Those desperate to lose weight at almost any cost are not limited to young, beauty-conscious women on social media. China has the biggest number of overweight or obese people in the world, with about half the population carrying excess weight. Rising rates of obesity combined with demanding beauty ideals make the Chinese market an enticing prospect for the makers of drugs like Ozempic, Wang said. Pharmaceutical companies have not been sitting idle. Novo Nordisk has applied to China's drug regulator to expand the use of Ozempic amid speculation it hopes to gain approval to market the drug precisely for weight loss. The company expects its drug Wegovy, which is explicitly aimed for weight loss, to be approved for sale in China this year. Indiana-based pharmaceutical company Eli Lilly in May received approval from Chinese regulators for its Ozempic rival tirzepatide. China's Hongzhou Zhuang Engineering, owned by pharmaceutical behemoth Hundong Medicine, earlier this year applied for approval to sell the first homegrown rival to Ozempic. Notwithstanding this development, the demand for weight loss drugs has outstripped supply, with Eli Lilly expecting demand to outpace supply in 2024 as well. On Chinese e-commerce platforms like Taobao, the price of Ozempic has risen as high as 1,000 yuan, that's $138, twice the cost of the same drug at the public hospital. While established companies are working with Chinese health authorities to increase supply, the sale of counterfeit versions of semaglutide products has surged on the Chinese internet. On more stories still on health matters, WHO says man with H5N2 bird flu dies in Mexico. The World Health Organization, WHO, has announced a man in Mexico with prior health complications has died after contracting the H5N2 strain of bird flu, warning that the risks to the general public by the virus remain low. The 59-year-old died in Mexico City in April after developing symptoms including a fever, shortness of breath, diarrhea, and nausea, the Global Health Agency in a statement said on Wednesday. The man's relatives said he had already been bedridden for 3 weeks for other reasons before the onset of his acute symptoms. Mexico's Public Health Department said in a statement that the man's underlying ailments included chronic kidney failure, diabetes, and high blood pressure. He sought hospital care on April 24th and died on the same day. Initial tests showed an unidentified type of flu that subsequent weeks of lab testing confirmed was H5N2, the WHO said. It was the first laboratory-confirmed human case of infection with an influenza A H5N2 virus reported globally, the agency added. Andrew Pecoz, an influenza expert at Johns Hopkins University in the United States, said the man's prior health conditions put him at risk of more severe influenza. But how this individual got infected is a big question mark. The WHO said the source of exposure to the virus was unknown, although cases of H5N2 have been reported in poultry in Mexico. These include in a backyard chicken farm in Mauchan, Maucan state, which borders Mexico state where the man lived, but authorities have so far been unable to establish a connection. The WHO said no further human cases have been discovered despite testing people who came in contact with the disease at home and in the hospital. There was no risk of contagion for the population, noting that all samples from identified contacts of the patient have been negative, Mexico's Ministry of Health also said. Authorities are monitoring farms close to the victim's home and have formed a permanent monitoring system to detect other cases in wildlife in the area, the ministry added. In African scenes, Egyptian Cypriot FMs urged renewed Gaza ceasefire. Cypriot's foreign minister on Tuesday said Israel's offensive on Gaza's southernmost city of Rafah was causing potential irreversible and catastrophic consequences. In a joint news conference with the Egyptian counterpart in Cairo, Konstantinos Kombos said the Israeli attack on Rafah needs to end. He said the operation of delivering humanitarian aid to Gaza through a U.S. military-built pair was a very complicated operation involving detailed and demanding logistical support. Broken apart by strong winds and heavy seas just over a week after it became operational, the project faces criticism that it hasn't lived up to its initial billing or its $320 million US price tag. However, U.S. officials say the steel causeway linked to the beach in Gaza and the floating pier are being repaired and reassembled at a port in southern Israel. The aid for the sea route is collected and inspected in Cyprus, then loaded onto ships and taken about 200 miles, that's 320 kilometers, to the large floating pier off the Gaza coast. There, the pallets are transferred into the trucks that then drive onto the army boats, which will shuttle the trucks from the pier to a floating causeway anchored to the beach. Once the trucks drop off the aid, they return to the boats. Egypt has decried Israel's attack on Rafah and its seizure of Philadelphia Corridor, a strategic corridor along its border with Gaza. Israel launched its war in Gaza after attacks by Hamas killed about 1,200 Israelis on October 7th. Over 36,000 Palestinians have been killed since then, several of them women and children. Fighting and Israeli restrictions on aid shipments through border crossings mean closely all 2.3 million people in Gaza are facing dire hunger. I'll take a quick break, and when I come back, I'll bring you more stories. Don't go anywhere. Now, stories from Nigeria. Still talking minimum wage. Edun to submit minimum wage template to Tinubu today. On Wednesday, the federal government and organized labor adjourned the minimum wage talks until Thursday, when the negotiation is anticipated to continue. The tripartite committee on national minimum wage postponed the session in anticipation of the Minister of Finance, Wale Edun, submitting the salary template to President Bola Tinubu today. On Tuesday, Tinubu had directed the finance minister to present the cost implications for a new minimum wage within 2 days. The president gave the order at a meeting with the government negotiating team led by the Secretary of the Government of the Federation, George Akume, at the presidential villa in Abuja. Sources in the labor unions private to the committee meeting said the parties decided to wait the outcome of the presidential template before proceeding with further negotiations. A top labor official who is the labor representative on the tripartite committee explained that the template was vital to the minimum wage negotiation. The source, who spoke on condition of anonymity, expressed confidence that the talks will record good progress once the presidential template is presented to the parties. Mohammed Idris, the Minister of Information and National Orientation, had hinted that the president wished to know the financial implications of the new minimum wage in 48 hours. Furthermore, he said Tinubu directed the government representatives to work collectively with the organized private sector and the subnationals to achieve a new affordable wage award for Nigerians. The minister assured that all hands will be on deck to present a new minimum wage for Nigerians in 1 week. Still going forward, federal government still grappling with fuel subsidy payments 1 year on. 1 year after President Bola Tinubu explicitly declared that the era of paying oil subsidies was over. Yesterday, the federal government admitted that it will be spending up to 5.4 trillion naira on oil subsidies in 2024. The president made that declaration during his presidential inaugural speech on May 29, 2023. With that, the price of petrol rose steeply from 194 naira a litre to over 600 naira due to market forces. The price had, however, stabilized at the present course despite fluctuations in the international price of crude, leading many to conclude that the government must be paying some subsidy on the product. For several months, government officials had continually denied this fact, insisting that there were no more subsidy payments. The revelation came during a presentation by Wale Edun, the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, in an Accelerated Stabilization and Advancement Plan ASAP, designed to address major challenges affecting the reform initiatives and stimulate development in various sectors of the economy. The federal government had earlier maintained that it will no longer subsidize fuel costs, instead opting for a deregulation policy. Heineken Lokpobiri, Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, said in April, "As far as I'm concerned, the president removed the subsidy and it remains removed till today. Anybody who's saying that subsidy is being paid, it is left for the person to bring the facts and then we will talk about them." The draft copy of the ASAP presented to the president was accompanied by an executive order to bolster the plan. It disclosed that the federal government is still supporting downstream consumption. And finally on the news, Kaduna Speaker says El-Rufai-led administration embezzled 423 billion naira. The Kaduna State House of Assembly has accused the administration of ex-governor Nasir El-Rufai of embezzling 423 billion naira. Yusuf Liman, Speaker of the Assembly, disclosed this information while receiving a report from the Assembly's ad hoc committee, which was tasked with probing all contracts, loans and financial transactions conducted during El-Rufai's tenure. The chairman of the ad hoc committee, Henry Zakaria, presented the report, stating that several of the loans acquired during El-Rufai's administration were not used for the intended purpose and that in several cases the proper procedures were not followed in obtaining the loans. Rahman repeated, the El-Rufai government embezzled 423 billion naira, leaving the state burdened with enormous obligations. The committee recommended that security and anti-corruption agencies probe and prosecute El-Rufai and other members of his cabinet implicated in the reports for abusing their positions of authority, awarding contracts without following proper procedures, diverting public funds, and money laundering. Another look at the top stories: Israeli bombing of Gaza, UNRWA school kills 32, results mapping in India 2024 election, 4 dead, dozens wounded in Czech train crash. United Nations chief urges tax on fossil fuel company profits, and weight loss drugs booming business in China. And that's all on the news. Thanks for watching from all the crew. Have a blessed day.